the Interreg Northwest Europe project IB Green that this webinar is centered around. Just a quick notice, because maybe you saw it also plopping up in Zoom, we're recording this webinar today. So if you do not want to appear in the webinar with your video, then we would encourage you to put off the video, even though we are very happy for those faces that we can see in the webinar, but we can understand this. Joining us today are also two project partners from the IB Green project. This is for once Maike Rohkemper from Bonn Science Shop or Villa Bonn, and also Hans von Ammers from the municipality of Arnhem. I think we can both see you, but maybe you can wave quickly into the camera, then we know who you are. Thank you so much. Otherwise, I would ask everyone to mute yourself if this is not the case already, but I think most have already done so. Then, before we get started on the IB Green project, just some quick background information. This webinar is part of an online webinar series as part of a pre-KAIC run-up, or the run-up to the Climate Alliance International Conference, which will be taking place in October in Cascais in Portugal. And next week and the week after that, we have two more webinars in this series. So I encourage you to check out the website of Climate Alliance and maybe register if you are interested in this. Coming back to the webinar you're in, I want to give you a brief overview of what we will be doing in the next roughly 1 hour. We will start with a short survey because we have a lot of, or at least we had a lot of municipalities also that registered here, and we are interested in receiving your input about climate adaptation in business parks. Afterwards, we will briefly introduce the project IB Green to those who maybe haven't heard of the project before, who are hearing about it for the first time. Then Maike and Hans will be presenting, will be giving two partner inputs specifically on challenges of climate adaptation in business parks and the activities that they're facing, and also the activities that they are doing under this project. And finally, you will also have the chance to get rid of the questions you surely have. And we will have a short discussion round at the end of this. So we would ask you, if you have any questions during the presentation, you can either write them in the chat, we will register them there, and then we will take them at the end when both Maike and Hans have finished with their input. So now we will start off with the survey I mentioned already. My colleague Helen will also post the link in the chat. You have the QR code here, so either way, and I will quickly switch my screen so that you can see it, but you have the link in the chat if you want to participate in this. Okay, so now you should be able to see the survey. Yes, I see you can see it, and I see that some of you have already started answering. For those who are just coming into the webinar now, we will start with a brief survey. So just come into the webinar. We have the link in the chat. And the first question that we are interested in, because for us the topic is very present, but we also want to know how this is the case for you, is how present the topic of climate adaptation in business parks is in your municipality. Maybe just to explain, because one reason that Project IB Green was started is also because it was more our impression that climate adaptation is more present on maybe the city, the urban level, but less so in industrial and business parks, even though they have, as we will hear later more with the presentation of Maike, also very large potential. Okay, so we have so far saying, a lot of people saying, and that's something that's a good thing too, that's saying that yes, the topic is present. Also some voices saying that it's not very present at all. So maybe this is a reason that you are joining us today in the webinar. All right. Then I will switch to the next question. And here we are interested in knowing more about what, in your eyes, especially if you're working for a municipality, are the main challenges to implementing climate adaptation in business parks. So you can type something you have here. Also, maybe if you have any specific questions for the webinar today, yeah, we would also be interested in hearing this. Then we can also use this for the discussion round later to see, yeah, to see where maybe it would be interesting to go on. So I would leave you 1 minute to type your responses and hope that someone is willing to break the ice. Yeah, we see the cost-benefit arguments. This is of course an issue with climate protection or as well, but of course even more so maybe with climate adaptation. Yeah, business case again. So we're again with the financial argument. Okay, and then someone's saying here lack of information on the impacts that these measures might have. So it's also a question of something we're also seeing in the project of measuring the impact before, but maybe also after the project itself. Yeah, then also, I think we will cover this also in the inputs, the question of convincing companies. Okay, so we really see there's a lot of the financial question really comes up again and again, but also information about measures. So yeah, there's still some typing in. Concern that the business will join the industry. Okay, so it's, yeah, we see it's I think we can say it's yeah, also something that we want to tackle in IB Green is to see how can municipalities approach companies, cooperate with companies together. Yeah, but also something that's now written is just yeah, something very basic is the making the case or the argument for climate adaptation in general. Okay, so in this, I hope there's no one still typing. Otherwise, we'd like to hear from you in the discussion round later, but I will stop the survey now. And now you should be able to see my screen again. Yes, perfect. Okay. Now, then I would just give you a brief before we come to the inputs. Just introduce the project quickly again to you. The project is called IB Green, Industrial and Business Parks, Climate Resilient and Fit for Future. The project will start in 2023 and will go until the beginning of 2027. We have a budget of around 8.9 million euro, and from this budget, around 5.4 million is coming from funding through the Interreg Northwest Europe program. Within IB Green, we are 11 project partners from 6 different countries. You can see a bit more specifically, very different project partners. So there's some municipalities, there's some NGOs as well, but also some local authorities, be it on a regional or even a national level. Then the question is, even though I think probably for most of you, I don't need to make the case here, why is it necessary to transform, especially business parks that already exists? And the answer, maybe we can see it visually here, is that for most IBPs, this is how they look. So we have very little vegetation or trees. We have mostly a focus on the car transport. We have a high degree of sealed, and especially with weather extremes, we have the urban heat islands, but we will go more into detail like this as well. But for this reason, the aim of IB Green is to transform industrial and business parks so that they can become more climate resilient, especially using green and blue infrastructure. And just briefly to go on the project level, we will be doing this with specific investments, funding adaptation measures, which will be done specifically in 7 industrial and business parks. So you can see here there are 2 in the Netherlands, 2 in France, 1 in Germany, Ireland, Belgium. So really across this Northwest Europe territory. This is one activity, or one very main activity in the project, but we will also be developing an IB Green strategy for climate adaptation action plans to implement that strategy, and further also a toolbox that will be available with best practices and practical approaches, as well as training schemes for companies and municipalities. However, now I would say it's enough from the theoretical project level, and Maike, the floor is yours for the first input and for a little bit more practical information. I will stop sharing my screen now.
Okay, 1 second, I'm just sharing my screen. I hope you can see everything in the right mode. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, now we can see it. Perfect.
Okay, great. This can be a little bit delay. I'm currently in Namibia, so maybe hopefully the internet connection is right. But thanks for the invitation and the chance to share some of our experience working with municipalities and companies in industrial and business parks, and in the context with our projects and networks. So today we want to have a closer look to company premises and challenges enterprises face with regards to climate change adaptation, and highlight as well some practical, some solutions and practical examples. So to start with, I just want to give you a brief introduction who we are for those who don't know us yet. So we're the Bonn Science Shop, or the Villa Bonn. And the Bonn Science Shop sees itself as a mediator between society and science, and has been a project partner for national but also international projects since 40 years. One particular focus for our projects is a transformation towards the sustainable development and climate resilience of industrial and business parks, where we are part of the IB Green team, but as well coordinate the network Green Instead of Grey, IPBs in Transition. This network offers information, individual advice, and practical support for local authorities and companies on their way to create a more sustainable and resilient business location. Furthermore, Bonn Science Shop supports projects through education, participation formats, and communication, and has been certified as an education, education for sustainable development institution since 2023. So in Germany, commercial areas account for about 20% of the settlement and traffic areas, which hold quite a potential for implementing effective measures to face challenges of climate change. To overcome the challenges, local and practical strategies for climate adaptation and multifunctional land utilization are essential. So in this industrial and business parks area, for example, logistic sites. So we've got one on the bottom right picture, thermographic image. You see they're quite vulnerable to heat development and the high degree of sealing of the site, which about 80 to 90%, and also a low proportion of greenery. So these heat islands, and also the increase of temperatures outside and inside the buildings, could lead also to potential health risks, and for employees working on site, but as well disruptions and of operations and threats to the infrastructure. So here you can see the key challenges I just mentioned: the heat stress and the increased rainwater runoff. Here, due to the extensive use impermeable surfaces and the lack of green spaces. So if there's any green spaces, they are often lacking of ecological value and contribute not much to climate resilience and biodiversity. Noise and pollution, which you're going to see on the right side, are additional challenges, not only affecting the environment, but also the acceptance of the business sites. So we have also soil compaction if there's any construction going on, for instance, if there's any extension, this will also affect the reduced infiltration capacity, which has an effect on flooding. So here you get an overview of some additional challenges enterprises faces. We've got the availability of space, so that's also limited space for implementing measures. We have, as already mentioned, the sealing of surfaces, which also due to operational purposes. So some of the spaces they have to be sealed, but there are also other places where more potential to use other material. The acceptance is a big issue, and as well will be talked about, or is talking about, old infrastructure of existing sites. So it's definitely a benefit having new one, but as we know, there are a lot of old infrastructures, or old sites we're facing this problem. And we heard at the beginning challenges also of limited financial resources, and one important one mentioned already is the health risks for employees and their satisfaction. So one promising solution is the integration of green-blue infrastructure into public and private spaces. So here we can see a beautiful graphic from the Hessian Agency for Nature Conservation, Environment and Geology, which shows an example of a climate, how and the climate adapted district look like. So we have, so sorry, it's not very clear. But it's on the bottom, you see bottom left, it's the more the industrial sites, and on the right, the public spaces. So there are numerous measures can be implemented, and yeah, these are the green-blue infrastructures. So what are the effects of green-blue infrastructures? So as we've seen, also the contributing of the mitigation of urban heat island by cooling the surfaces and improving microclimates, and also the improvement of rainwater retention. For instance, green roofs, which hold an enormous amount of rainwater, annual precipitation, and also management of other retention systems. They can reduce flood risks. And a diverse and adapted vegetation can enhance local ecosystems and also promote biodiversity on site. Green roofs, green fences, green facades, but also other structures like hedges, they capture dust and pollutants and contribute to the improvement of air quality. So with this, we can create a healthy and pleasant work environment, like an attractive and healthy one. But they also, so GBI can be interlinked and also combined with other measures. So it's always multifunctional, and which can increase the benefits. So multifunctional areas can provide recreational, environmental, and operational value in these limited urban spaces. So here you can see the potentials of the company sites with an overview of the individual measures and the effects on biodiversity, rainwater retention through storage or infiltration, cooling through shading, and evapotranspiration. And so as you can see, there are numerous measures. They have more than one benefit. So they're multifunctional. So we've got on the left side, for instance, unsealed traffic surfaces here. That's the fire brigade road, or we have employee parking sites or visitor parking sites. But then we also have green spaces, normally also peripheral or on the sides, which have benefits for biodiversity, so have ecological value, but also have recreational value. So for instance, like green spaces, green shaded spaces for employees. So as well large trees, which can provide shade for buildings, but also for recreational spaces. And then we have the buildings. So the buildings, they have one of the greatest potential. It's huge spaces. I mean, we think of logistic sites, the roofs. Are sure they're limited in statics, but there are also options that, for instance, administrative buildings, they can have a thicker layer of greenery. And also there is an opportunity to combine all that system. So we have water retention in a water retention roof combined with a green layer, and as well solar panels. So there's different ways, or to having a rooftop garden where if you don't have space on the bottom for recreational purposes, you can use the rooftop to use that. So on shore, we have other combined systems with greenery and infiltration systems. So where can we start? I think that's a big question. So we know the challenges, but we want to see where the solutions. So okay, where can we start planning and implementing measures in IPBs? A potential check could help with that, to get an overview and identify and evaluate potential field of actions. Here you can see the potential check, like just a brief view on what the Villa Bonn is doing. It's a simple, quick, individual, expandable assessment of strengths and weaknesses. And this information serves as a basis for further analysis and decisions. So measures identified, fields of actions, they can be highlighted on a map. You can see here, these are with icons, and that's quite a nice method for communication with stakeholders. So you can say, okay, here we have got these highlights, these are the threats also here regards flooding. So it's very simple, but this can also be shown to companies and say, okay, you're in an area where it's quite risky and you have got quite a big area, you could do something. So this is the great starting point for that. A great starting point is as well to start in IPBs with public spaces. So there are a lot of neglected, I would say neglected spaces, which hold quite a potential to be greened, or to be changed into or other areas, the multifunctional areas. So I've got some examples for multifunctional areas. For instance, this is in the city of Bocholt in the north of Germany, where on a public space, a multifunctional space was created. So employees, visitors, use from nearby companies are using this space, and so that's quite nice to use that. Then we have got from Remscheid an example where in collaboration with a company network and the municipality, a green co-working space and recreation space was created. So I think that's very cool to see what's possible. Sure, there's always someone needed to with the maintenance. And you see that's why it's very important, and it's great to see that collaboration between the public and the private, what can happen. So if we want to have a closer look to what kind of measures are possible on private sites, but also have a great visual, but also impact on climate resilience are measures. These are from a company in Bonn. They received consultation. We did like site visits, and they received some guidance, advice in form also of a potential check. There was a bit different potential check, but this one highlight also what kind of measures are possible. And so they were like old pine trees, but they were like starting to die because they were too dry, and so something need to change. And so they started planting new trees and started greening the fence. So at the beginning, sure, it looks not very attractive, but if after a few years, it will be a green fence The other company as well, that's more happened not on purpose, so started greening itself. So these are measures which can be implemented with a lower budget and also great visibility and impact. One is we already talked about the green roofs. For sure, if it's a new building, like on the left side, so it was a new construction, they started combining a extensive green roof, which can already hold 50% of the annual precipitation, combined with a canteen area. So it's quite convenient. So you have both. You have also during the summertime, you have a cooler space, spending time because it's cooling through the vegetation, but it's also very attractive. And so space is used in a multifunctional way. On the right side, that is an example from Bocholt, where a company greened in combination with solar panels, and this was also afterwards done. So it's an existing structure. So things are possible, but sure, it's better if it's done in advance. So then we have some examples, combination of, so where are the green areas? Some of the green areas on sites are usually small, but some are also bigger. So it's, for instance, reserve areas. They might not be used for some time or never been used. And then we have retention areas, and these you can design in a different way. And so, for instance, small areas with a herbal lawn, or you have fruit trees, fruit shrubs, and a pass-through for the employees, different habitat structures, but also an attractive retention area which can be used as a recreational values as well. I quite like this
Maike, maybe
example.
just to jump
yep.
in quickly, maybe
Yes.
if you have a few more minutes, and then we can come to
Okay,
a close
sorry.
with your input. Just no
I'm
worries, no
almost
worries.
I can talk with this
yeah.
long. I would go through. So this is just an example of a new construction area from logistics side. They included quite nicely the biodiversity-oriented design. It's very central, the retention area with the different structures and plants. And then we have got special permeable surfaces at the visitor parking sites. And then we have got walking paths, which are also not unsealed. We have on the side places where the fire brigade can drive, also not. So it's a lot of transitions of different surfaces, and that's quite nicely planned. And then an example of how retention areas can be used in a multifunctional way, close to canteen areas, and an example about where this was also done in collaboration between municipality in Remscheid and companies, where a lot of trees were planted in the IPB, but as well on the company sites, which were done with the unsealing of parking spaces. And just to end up, I use the chance to announce the so-called IB Green Award. It's the EU-wide project award for implemented GBI measures. So companies who have already implemented measures, they can apply via an online survey. I will just ask if maybe Ellen can post a link from our website. And so there's an opportunity to win prizes, but also if you just participate, you get the chance to participate at workshops to get an insight about what best practice examples and general knowledge about GBI. So I thank you for, yes, time should go fast, and for the introduction about what's happening in IPBs on company premises. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Maike, for your input. I think, or I was looking back at the questions from Mentimeter, and because we had one question that was about convincing companies, I think there was already a lot in your input about how to convince companies. We had the keyword of multifunctional areas, healthy and pleasant work or living environment. There was already a lot there. Because I still see one question, just to let you know, we will take these questions at the end. So we will have one more import now, and then you can either write the questions in the chat, or you can ask both Maike and Hans the questions at the end. So Hans, I leave the floor to you now for the second input.
Yes, so I have to share my screen. Hopefully it all goes well. So,
Yes, we can
did you see
now.
it?
Yes,
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay. So, well, good morning, and also from my side, from the Netherlands. Thank you for inviting me to tell you something about how we want to proceed in what we say targeting entrepreneurs to take more action on climate adaptation on their lot and on the IBPs. Let's see if it works to go to the next one. No. Uh-oh. There we are.
Yes, it works.
Okay, so I want to tell you something about how we, as a municipality, and I think that's quite general for municipalities in the Netherlands who face the same challenges as Maaike already positioned. So I will not focus on what are the challenges regarding climate adaptation or what are possible measures. I will just mention one or two, but I will go to my presentation. What we experience is that in most cases, entrepreneurs are not motivated enough to take action on climate adaptation. So what we want to change, and that is our focus also within the IB Green project, is to get them more active. But first of all, why do we think that they are not so keen on taking climate adaptation measures? In our belief, they will take measures. They already taken measures in the last years, but they are quite small. So they will plant a tree. They will have some fences between their lot and the surrounding lots. But really big, let's say, implementation measures that will really reduce or improve the climate situation on an IBP has to start. So what we think is that one of the problems is there's no direct payback from greening investments on the financial status of the entrepreneur, which is the case for a lot of energy transition measures, as you know, like insulation or energy production. And what we also see that there is a really high urgency to tackle the problems according to net congestion. And I think this is a big problem in the Netherlands. I think it is in most countries a big problem. I don't know if it's all the countries in Europe, but and which net congestion could have a really serious impact on the business growth expectations. So focus on energy transition is far the most urgent challenge that businesses face. So if there are entrepreneurs who take action on climate adaptation, it's mainly because they have a wider sustainability approach. They have a vision for their company and their business that they should focus on sustainability. I will give you one example on the next slide. So they are not interested only on climate adaptation, but like, as I mentioned, energy transition, circular economy, food, etc. E-mobility as well. And if they are interested on climate adaptation, it's in fact not climate adaptation, it's mainly greening, because greening has a positive effect on the way their business looks for people that visit their business. So this is one of the best examples we have on one of our 3 IBPs, which are the focus we have in Arnhem within IB Green. This is actually the front runner in Arnhem as well. It's a coffee roastery who has sustainability given the highest priority. For instance, great attention for the health and income of the coffee growers in the countries around the world. So what he did not green up the entrance and let's say his lot because he thinks climate adaptation is a big issue, but he wants that the suppliers that visit his company see that he is really a sustainable business. And also for his employees, because he really likes his employees to have a good feeling when they go to work. When it's hot outside, they can sit in the shade, which is course not the option you see here, but he has also shaded cool spots around his lot. So this is what we see at some places in our IBPs. So how we want to get entrepreneurs more motivated? We think that the best way to do it is that you combine all the sustainable challenges entrepreneurs face in the upcoming years. So not only climate adaptation, but what we do, and we see that is not only in our city the case. It's general in my country, in the Netherlands. You face on energy transition, the reasons I already mentioned, climate adaptation, circular economy, and e-mobility, or the mobility question around IBPs is always an issue because of the large movements of trucks and cars all day round. And for this, we have what we call in the Netherlands a Green Deal. It's an instrument, you could say it's a covenant or an agreement made between the municipality, park management of the IBP, individual owners and tenants of the IBPs, and in many cases also knowledge institutions and you could say employer organizations on these specific issues. And you could say it is a really action covenant. So it's not we're going to study this and we're going to invest that. Action, action, action. That's of course also what entrepreneurs do. Action, action. So at this moment we have in total we have 26 IBPs. No, I'm correct. 19 IBPs in our city, and on 3 we have a Green Deal. And in the upcoming years we will have a Green Deal on every one of them. Within the Green Deal, we look at the co-benefits of these 4 challenges. So climate adaptation is only one of them. And what we do, we support the implementation of what is being agreed on in the Green Deal. That means that the municipality finances the process of the Green Deal. Also, in our case, the province, the regional authority will finance, so that the entrepreneurs can focus on what their lots and on the common aspects. And what we think, you should focus on the positive effects of greening, not only on the effect on reduced climate risk, but also what can green mean for the health of the employees, what can greening mean for the marketing of your business, etc., etc. And a big issue is, of course, the existence of subsidies and other financial schemes to finance the implementation of the measures. We see that financing climate adaptation is a real bottleneck. It's a real point to take into consideration. And of course, a municipality should also take action, because if we only ask businesses to green up their lots and we do nothing in the public space, that won't help. So this is one option of what we did so far. We had some pilot studies, you could say, on one of the IBPs to find out whether the entrepreneurs of these 3 lots, who could you say were quite interested in climate adaptation, would take action if we would help them in a specific way. So one thing was, is this, you could say, kind of a climate adaptation scan? That's also what Mike presented in another way. Here you can see what are the concrete options for climate adaptation measures on a specific lot. And what we also give them is a priority on what could you do first, what are the costs of these implementations, and how could you finance the measurements. I'm sorry that you see, I use an old one. I should have taken, but I'm not going to get out and in again. So this is
no worries.
What you see in red. It's of no consideration to you. So how we will proceed from now during the last, what you could say, the remaining 2 years of the project, I have to say, IB Green, is that we just tendered a consultancy who are going to support all the entrepreneurs on the 3 IBPs. So it's about 100 to 150 entrepreneurs in the upcoming 2 years. We hired a process manager on all the 3 IBPs, and the task of him or her is to, what you could say, trigger the entrepreneurs to step into one of the four challenges. Of course, climate adaptation should be one, we hope, but she and he goes to all the entrepreneurs, owners and tenants with the Green Deal, you could say, and ask, okay, in what challenges are you interested? And then we as a municipality will step up and say, okay, how are we going to help you on these specific challenges? So when we go to, of course, the item of climate adaptation, for which we are here, of course, the consultancy will visit the entrepreneur, he will visit the location, find out what are suitable climate adaptation measures. We'll also have a real conversation with the owner and or tenant. What are the wishes he or she has with his lot? Are there any, let's say, do we have any plans to grow? So maybe build new buildings on the lot or whatever. And if he has already some quite specific demands that he or she wants to take into account in the study. And the consultancy will look for the crossovers with the other three challenges. So for instance, if a company wants to focus on energy transition, as Mike already mentioned, they want to place solar panels on the roofs. There is a crossover with climate adaptation because you can link a green roof with solar panels, which also improves the energy that is being produced by solar panels. And then the consultant will give a specific advice. He will also say what would be the best options to start with. Because as we say, you can make your lot climate proof, and it will cost you about 300,000 euro. The entrepreneur will stop immediately. So we say, okay, if you would start with these specific measures, these are the cost of implementation, these are the cost of maintenance, and we will also present them the possible subsidies there are in local, regional, and national, and financial schemes that could make it also for the tax. How do you say the way they how do you say that? In the Netherlands, we have a possibility that if you invest on sustainable measures, you can deduct specific costs from your tax payment, you could say. And what we also know is that, for instance, banks can give loans with lower interest if an entrepreneur invests in sustainable measures. So this is a real joint effort. This is a really, you could say, really quite intense process we are going through, because we need to hold hands to, well, to make it happen. And we hope, of course, that the IB Green Partnership will be able to support us with additional knowledge and assistance and help to improve our approach. So I think that's it. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Hans. That was perfectly on time.
That's
That's
great.
perfect, and no worries about the slides. So I think also very interesting input. Even of course, maybe it's not what we want to hear, that companies aren't primarily interested in climate adaptation, but maybe more in the greening aspect or how employees are feeling. It's still something we can use. And also an important point, I think, is to say that yeah, we can't just, or it's not just possible to go to companies and expect them to do a lot with adaptation, but that the municipality has to, yeah, act in a certain way, or yeah, go forward with measures as well. So I will share my slides again, but now is the time where I would invite you to put on your videos. If you have questions, you have the unique opportunity that we have two IB Green project, or three with us, IB Green project partners who can answer your questions. Okay, so if you have any, feel free, that are still open. Now we need someone to break the ice.
Maybe I have a question. Yeah, maybe more about because we spoke about the finance side. I don't know if you know, maybe this is more for the city of Arnhem, the question, but does it happen that, for example, there are like financing schemes? I mean, the local authorities or regional authorities are like offering financing schemes for climate adaptation, for example, for companies, but that it's not really, I mean, that this money is just not used because the companies don't know, for example, how to apply to those financing schemes, or they just don't know that it does exist, or does it happen? Is it a big challenge as well, or not really? In your case?
Do you ask me, Helene?
I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, in general.
Yeah,
Oh,
or
sorry.
Mike. I mean, or everyone that can answer.
I'm sorry. More in general. Yeah.
But you can answer, Hans. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, to be in our case, we have a specific subsidy that's called Blue Green Initiative. So we finance if residents, entrepreneurs, whoever in our city wants to, let's say, green up their lot. It could be so destoning and greening in general, but also water related measures. We can finance these actions with 30 to 65%. That's a specific subsidy we have. Until now, it has been mainly used by residents or residential groups, because to be honest, we as the team climate adaptation in my municipality, we focused the recent years mainly on the, you could say, the neighborhoods and the city center. So not on IBPs. That is like I'm saying, kind of a missed spot in the city, and that's quite general in the Netherlands, I think. So that's one of the reasons why we joined IB Green. Our subsidy is used very, very well. So you have really, it's a local subsidy. The province, so our regional authority, also have a subsidy, but that's only for an IBP as in total if they work together. National, there are no subsidies. There are only specific tax financial arrangements, you could say, or what I said is that I heard that banks can give a loan to an entrepreneur with a lower interest rate if they invest in sustainability.
Yeah, okay. So it means that in general, the subsidies are quite well used. I mean, people are aware that it exists and it's easy to apply, like kind of to have a subsidy.
No. No, the point is that these larger, the more national or European, because these financial loan things, they are financed by the European bank, so it's European wide. But the point is that nobody knows about it, or nearly nobody knows it. So in the Netherlands, we have you could say, a national platform that's called Platform Sustainable Financing of, for instance, IBP. So it focuses only on how to finance sustainable measures on, for instance, IBP, also on other lots. And it was initiated by our national bank. So the Dutch bank initiated this, and they are trying. So all the Dutch banks are part of it, and the insurance companies, and they focus on, let's say, disseminating these specific knowledge. So I was really interested in this is also the case in other European countries and member states, if there are any financial schemes like this in Germany, in France, and whoever is present in this webinar. But maybe you can also tell me later.
So maybe if someone knows who's in this webinar, please feel free to jump in. I mean, what I know, for example, Hans, but this is more to something else that you said in your presentation, because we were talking about how to combine energy transition with adaptation. I know there's some cities in Germany, but this is also more on an individual household level. There are certain subsidies, for example, for greening the roof, and you get a higher percentage of the subsidy if, for example, you combine it with I don't know if you have solar panels or something like this. So then there's different rate of how much can be financed, depending on if it's just climate adaptation or if you combine it with something else. This exists, but again, if there's
no,
but yeah,
not
it's
in the way.
not for the companies. I think actually it's just on a
Yeah, not in
household
the way that
level.
we say that if you have and climate adaptation and energy transition, you get a higher subsidy. But what we see in general in residential areas as well, mainly in the residential areas, energy transition, so sustainability measures, and greening of your direct living environment is closely linked. So if you focus on greening, you can easily step over to sustainability and the other way. So we, in fact, combine these two challenges if we go out in the neighborhoods and go to our residents what they want with their living environment. So yes, but we have the subsidies are different because in the Netherlands, the national government has subsidies on energy transition, and we don't. So we don't have them because we don't need them. They're national. And the local authority has subsidies on climate adaptation because national government has no subsidies. So that's the difference.
Thank you, Hans. We have one more question, or Linde Vertriest, you asked how the sites were selected. Maybe you can briefly say, I assume you mean the sites for the business parks in the IB Green project, or did you mean the examples that Mike had? In case you mean IB Green, I know Hans or Helene, maybe you can say about this, because the question is how the business parks were selected, whether it was prioritized by climate risks or rather by potential for cooperation or other criteria.
Yes. So why did we choose these 3 IBPs? Well, in fact, we choose an IBP that was already who had already a green deal. The second one was working on the Green Deal, and we have one who has no Green Deal yet. So we took kind of a diversity. And if he or she is interested, why would an IBP go for a Green Deal? That's so the instrument is a national instrument, and we focus on the IBPs where there is, let's say, from out of the IBPs, from the entrepreneurs or park management, is the need or the wish to take steps, and then we step in. So we follow the need and the urgency from the entrepreneurs to work on a Green Deal. It's not that we just say, okay, we're going to make a Green Deal for you if they don't want it. So the first one, IJsselord 1, was the first and most active IBP park management organization. I hope that somewhat helps the one.
Yeah, Linde, if you meant something else, feel free to unmute and ask again. Otherwise, maybe another question to you, Maike. Okay, she read it's clear. Thank you. Maybe if you could just say, or I can imagine that there's municipalities here in the webinar who've maybe done a little bit more already on green blue infrastructure, but also some who still need to get started. Do you have maybe any, or this is to Maike, but also to Hans, if you have it, any ideas for first steps that can be taken, or something where kind of the question, if someone is asking themselves, where should I start if I want to begin thinking about green blue infrastructure and business parks?
I think as similar to Hans said, it's also good to ask the entrepreneurs, and also because we did a lot of site visits, and as soon you know your people, you know the site, and so then you see what great potentials are there and what possibilities, and sometimes so we did it was like also a general offer that we do these potential checks on site, like site visits. And then we were contacted by the entrepreneurs, by the businesses, and then we also asked what are the needs and so on. But we also saw where the potentials are and what can be done. And sometimes it's usually they need to do any changes because they are, like, for instance, the parking space is because the trees are growing, the roots are growing, so the parking space is destroyed. So they have to do some changes. So they're in a stage where they need a kind of support. So that's the best best case to start, because they are businesses in need for change, and if you have any subsidies, for instance, change the surfaces on parking sites and so on. But also said it's an issue that some of the subsidies are not tailored to company sites, but it's good always to come with an offer. But yeah, I think it's good to start with site visits, and also see where are maybe also some central in IPBs. You have always this, we call it like entrance gates, or like where it's very visible sites, and start with their changing lawns into flower beds, and just to do any kind of changes, and also to get awareness about that, and then you continue going deeper into the IPB sites individually. So it's a lot of work, because it's an individual approach, but that's like more, I think it's better, but still there should be a strategic approach for the whole area as well.
Thank you, Maike. Okay.
Yeah,
No, go ahead, Hans. Yes, please.
One small, I think what Mike said, that's completely correct. What we think works is that, well, it was of course based again on the Green Deal. Within the Green Deal, you have a kind of a steering group, and you have workshops on the different challenges. So you have a workshop energy transition, a workshop climate adaptation, and in the workshop, interested entrepreneurs take place. What really helps is that one entrepreneur says to his neighbor, hey, that's interesting, you should do it. If we say it, it won't help. Of course, if Boston Science would say it, it also helps, because the knowledge institution is also more, let's say, believed. But if we as a municipality would say, you have to do this, because, yeah, whatever, no. So we step back, and we let the consultancy take over, the knowledge institutions take over, and the entrepreneurs tell other entrepreneurs that's a good thing to do. And if we have a larger group, then we can really make a difference. So yeah, so it's I think really put effort on what I would say park management. If you don't have a park management, it's really difficult.
Yeah, I think we had similar. We had like network events we invited for the companies to join with a specific topic, and there was always someone from the business park, some business owner who had a talk and explained what is he doing, like his best practice examples. It's very similar to what Hans said. I think that's a good approach to start them telling story, or someone else. Yeah.
Okay, I think we have first, I think I saw Mr. Mallet from Nantes. I don't know if you want to ask a question too,
Yes.
and then we can have Linda again.
Okay, thank you for the presentations. We see some examples concerning business plots, but do you have reflections on the scale of business park, especially for the renaturation, for example? You have a global design of the park. General question for the two.
Yeah,
but Hans, maybe this is...
you have to help me on your question. So what are you interested in is the reaction from the entrepreneurs to the scan or the advice?
Or for example, you can manage nature-based solutions at the global scale of the business park. You have to discuss with different companies and to find global answers between different companies. And do you have these sort of actions? I don't know.
Yeah, I think I understand. I hope I understand. You are correct, because if you would only focus on a specific lot, for instance, the IJsselnoord has 55 business lots, and if would only 10 of them would participate, you cannot realize a green, let's say, a green plan for the whole IBP. So what we do is we make a scan of the public space. That's the first one, in which we say, what's possible in the public space, and we hope that as many entrepreneurs step in so that we can make the puzzle, you could say. So what we do not do is we make a whole greening plan of the IBP, and we present it to the to entrepreneurs and says, okay, this is what you could do. We want the entrepreneurs to have the need and the wish to do it themselves on their lot. And for this, we subsidize them, which is out of the IB Green project. So that's the way we work. But to be honest, that's not, that's up to the municipality and park management how we do it, because we have the municipality of Leeuwarden as well in the project, and she does it another way. They have a green plan of the whole IBP. They present it to the entrepreneurs, and then hope that the entrepreneur will say, oh, that's interesting, I will do that for my lot. We think that it is not the most effective way, but we have to find out if our approach really works. So yeah, I hope that helps out a little on your question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Otherwise, maybe as one tip, we also have as one project partner in the project Lille Metropole, actually. So maybe it's also worth contacting them if you're not already in contact. So I know the time is over, but maybe Linda, if you still have one question left that you want to pose, if you were still in the webinar, we can still.
I'm still here. Thank you. Thanks for your interesting presentations already. I just wanted to ask, because what you said, Hans, about park management being crucial, we have experienced that it's sometimes quite difficult to keep park management active over time. And I wondered if that's something you're working on as well, and what your experience is there.
Yes, well, I agree. I can say that it is really difficult to, well, first to have a park management and how park management is financed. I think that was also what you were referring to. So the process of let's say the approach we have is that as soon as we have a Green Deal, we say, okay, we will finance as a municipality or as a government, also the regional government, we will finance the process for the years that the Green Deal is taking place. So that's mainly 2 to 3 years, and then we have an update. But in general, in time, we will lower our contribution to park management. With the idea, that we expect that if the entrepreneurs see that working together with park management will make their challenges be realized, they have to invest on park management themselves. So it's a kind of a process. To be honest, we are not at the phase that I can say this will work, but that is the focus. We will finance and we will lower, and the entrepreneurs have to finance more.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Then just one quick more notice, even as we're coming to an end, we just want to make you aware that in November, we will be having the midterm conference of IB Green, which will be taking place on November 13th in Lille, France. You can find out, you can't click in here, but we will be sending you the presentation as well. So you can have more of a look at as well as the program of this event, and of course also register if you are interested. And I think Helen posted it now in the chat as well. You can, thank you, Helen, for doing this. And then just to also give you the heads up that, of course, you can also get more information on the project, on what we are doing on the project website, on LinkedIn. Also, we have a project newsletter that's sent out 2 times a year. Or if you still have specific questions, even after this webinar, you can also contact me, Helen, or Svenja directly as project coordinators. So then all I have left to say is thank you very much for taking this webinar, and also for the staying inside the 5 more minutes that we have over time, and have a good day, hopefully. Bye-bye. And thank you very much, Hans and Mike as well, especially for giving the input and sharing your experiences.
Okay, bye-bye. Have a good day.
Bye-bye, you too.
Thanks. Thank you.
You're welcome.